Fantasy Football Almost Daily is brought to you by Fanball. The Week 9 Fanball winners contests are up right now on the Fanball mobile app. That includes the Thursday night Ravens and Dolphins matchup that I'm about to preview. And I think the biggest question is, who will have the most fantasy points between Derrick Henry and Devon Achane this week? Pick the best quarterback in the game and the best receiver from each of the Ravens and Dolphins, and you've got yourself a lineup. Just pick the winners in those 4 groups of 4, and you split the pot with your fellow winners. Join now on Fanball. Use the promo code ALMOST for a $20 deposit match for first-time depositors. Come pick the winners with us. Today's episode also brought to you by Game Blazers, which is about to have its biggest prize week in history. Week 9 is mid-season madness with a $75,000 set of prizes in free roll cash games on the line right now. If you haven't signed up yet, now's the time. If you use referral code FFAD when you register, they changed it up a little bit this week. You're going to get a free starter pack plus a free rare pack, which usually costs $25. Plus, you'll get a spend 5, get 50 offer once you finish onboarding to get 2 more rare packs. So download the Game Blazers app today. Today, we're going to preview the Thursday night contest between the Ravens and Dolphins in Miami. But first, we're going to hear music of some sort.
From the Sports Hub Games Network, this is Fantasy Football Almost Daily with your host, Matt Harrison.
Hey friends, it's Matt Harrison. We're back again, and you can find me on Twitter or Blue Sky at Explosive Output. If you follow me on Blue Sky and you ask me fantasy questions, I will answer you over there. We're going to keep it short and sweet and preview the Thursday night contest, Fantasy Football Weekly style. But before we get to that, wherever you're listening or watching this pod, make sure that you like, follow, or subscribe to Fantasy Football Almost Daily and give us a high 5 or a 5-star rating. This Friday, you can find me, Scott Fish, and Paul Charchian prepping all of this weekend's games on Fantasy Football Weekly. That episode will be up late Friday on your favorite podcast platform, and we kind of nailed it last week. I did really well on my Take a Chance on Me's. Let's see if I can do really well on the Thursday night preview, and we're going to start with probably the most interesting guy in the game. That's Lamar Jackson, who is a full participant in practice on Tuesday, but there was some confusion about his practice status last week where they listed him as more of a participant than he was, and then he didn't play. But the Ravens are pretty confident he'll play this week. Jackson hasn't played since week 4, and in his three full games this year, he's averaging about 30 standard fantasy points per game. If Jackson is fully mobile and ready to run, he's in a great spot against the Dolphins, who've allowed the 8th most rushing yards and the most rushing scores to quarterbacks. The Dolphins' pass D hasn't been tested a ton, though. Since it's been so easy to run on them, they're facing the 8th fewest pass attempts per game at only 28 pass attempts per game. That's very low. So I'll give Lamar a B+ grade. I'm a little nervous that he won't have to pass enough and that the Ravens will be running so easily that they won't need to run Lamar and keep some hits off of their freshly returning quarterback. His favorite wide receiver is Zay Flowers. Again, a little nervous about the Ravens not needing to pass in this one. The Finns have allowed the 2nd fewest yards to wide receivers and the 7th fewest receptions. Only one wide receiver has topped 82 yards against the Dolphins this year, and they've only given up 1 touchdown pass to a wide receiver in the last 3 weeks. C+ grade for Zay Flowers. I'm leaving Bateman on the bench. Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely are essentially splitting snaps now. The targets are wildly inconsistent, though. Maybe that was Cooper Rush and Snoop Huntley. Andrews only saw 12 total targets in the 3 games that Jackson missed, and Likely only had 5 in that span, but Lamar will be back. Last season, when Likely and Lamar were together, Likely had double-digit PPR points in 3 of the last 5 games of the fantasy season down the stretch, and Andrews scored a touchdown in 11 of the last 15 regular season games he's played with Lamar. The Dolphins are allowing the 4th most receptions and the 6th most yards to tight ends. However, only 3 touchdowns to the position this year. So I'll give Andrews a C grade. Likely stays on the bench for now, but he's worth keeping an eye on. If he's available in your league and you got a roster spot deep on your bench, I wouldn't mind picking him up and putting him there. Finally, the runners. Derrick Henry, he gets an A grade because it's the Dolphins. Lamar's back. He's due for a giant game. He did score twice last week, and they've recommitted to him in the last 2 games, giving him 24 and 21 carries in the last 2 weeks. Miami's allowing 5.0 yards per carry and the third most rushing yards per game at 117 per game. So A grade for Derrick Henry. Keaton Mitchell, he passed the eye test last week, running for 43 yards on only 4 carries on only 7 snaps. Justice Hill only had 1 rush for 2 yards. But I think both of these guys could be desperation D-grade starts in this one. Game script should favor the Ravens in this one. And Hill's had 2 games this year with 5 receptions. Mitchell can catch out of the backfield a little bit too. And the Dolphins have allowed the 8th most receptions and 5th most receiving yards to opposing runners. Let's go over to the Miami side where Devon Achane is the only Dolphin most fantasy players have felt comfortable starting at all this year. I think you can continue to do that this week. He gets an A grade. The Ravens have allowed 10 touchdowns to opposing running backs this year and 4.6 yards per carry. 5 of the last 6 top runners have scored a touchdown against the Ravens. And Achane is only behind Christian McCaffrey for targets and receptions to running backs this year. So I really like Achane a lot in this one. We won't go to Ollie Gordon or Jalen Wright, who each had 10 touches last week, but that was in a blowout win, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be that opportunity for them this week. Jalen Waddle, startable with a C+ grade, 8th most receptions and 6th most touchdowns allowed to wide receivers. Waddle has hit 15 PPR points in 3 of his last 4 games. Malik Washington has established himself as the number 2 wide receiver, but his ADOT is so low that it's tough to start him ever. So Waddle's the only startable receiver on the Dolphins. Of course, Darren Waller on IR. Julian Hill, his backup. He didn't practice on Tuesday, but you're probably not starting a Dolphins tight end anyway. You can start Tua with a B grade, though. He's thrown multiple touchdown passes in 5 of his last 7 games, including 4 touchdown passes last week against the Falcons. And opposing quarterbacks are averaging 259 and 2 against the Ravens this year. Game script should favor some passing for Tua in this one. That all adds up to, I think it's a solid B grade for Tua in this one. So, and that wraps up the Ravens and Dolphins with a bow. A reminder on Game Blazers, get in on mid-season madness at Game Blazers this week to win your share of $75,000 in cash prizes. It's free to play. Sign up with the promo code FFAD for a free starter pack, a free rare pack, and of course that 5 for 50 deal. Learn more at GameBlazers.com. We'll be back tomorrow with another show with the red hot Trevor Jones as we preview this week's favorite DFS plays. We hope to have your eyeballs and ear holes back here for that on another edition of Fantasy Football Almost Daily.
This was Fantasy Football Almost Daily. Please subscribe and give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts.